I'm gonna let you know what the top 3 most enjoyable classes are in Lord of the Rings Online in 2023. But before we can do that, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see some more Lord of the Rings Online content. And now let's figure out what the top 3 classes are. Let me start off by saying that this is strictly my opinion, and this is in no particular order. Now, I am someone who has played Lord of the Rings Online since the beta. I more or less just say that I've played consistently for 12 years, but I did start playing in the beta years with my father and my family. It was a great old time. So I've played a lot, and I've seen the classes definitely develop several times throughout my time of playing. I'm just saying that because I want to make it clear that I have literally survived several class reworks. I've seen new classes pop up from nothing, and I'm going to be totally honest, my top 3 has changed so drastically. So for what I'm saying for my top 3 most enjoyable and fun classes now could definitely change in a year from now. And like I mentioned, it's in no particular order, so take it as you will. But the first class I'm going to start off with saying is Minstrel. I have always loved Minstrel. It was actually my first class I ever got to a max level. When I got my Minstrel to level 100, that was the then max, I actually had such an enjoyable time with it. I love the Minstrel. I am someone who definitely did not want to be like a main healer. Minstrels are definitely known for being like super important in raids for healing, so I did not want to be a healer. Minstrels are one of the first classes that I feel were like super squishy. They were seen as super light armored classes that no one wanted to play, and I feel like they had the first rework that just completely annihilated their DPS. Like their damage was so crazy. I remember when my father and we played, we were both max level characters. He was a guardian, I was a minstrel, and he would get annihilated by 3 skills. It would take 3 skills for my minstrel to just slaughter him. It was insane. Like, I've never seen anything like it. But anyway, that's in the past. I want to talk about minstrels now though, because they're still super enjoyable, and I think they're a pretty slept on class. I'm definitely someone who does gravitate more towards like your mages, or sort of like your sages, anything that's more like magical-ish powers, and Minstrel kind of has those elements to it. It's not like you're gonna grab like your sword, you're not gonna be a tank like a guardian, but your main weapon is to be with your instrument. That's also another great thing about minstrels. You can literally have instruments as your weapon. Like, you have a sword, but your main weapon is your lute, your bagpipes, your clarinet, your cowbells. And isn't it so funny that you literally are just annihilating mobs by your voice, by your playing? Like, your playing is that bad that it kills mobs. Like, think about that. No, but in all seriousness, I'm just joking, but I really do like the Minstrel because you can do more long-range damage, which is something I like to do. I don't like to do all the melee combat and all that. That's really not my forte, which is probably why I gravitated more towards minstrels anyway. However, even if I'm gonna compare it to a Runekeeper, I just don't really have the same excitement with a Runekeeper like I do a minstrel. Which is quite funny because I'm typically maining a Runekeeper right now, so I'm kind of throwing a little shade on my Runekeeper, but I mean, minstrels just have something more about them. I think I just like the skill animations just a little more in comparison to Runekeepers. And I feel like with my minstrel, I could just do better damage in the terms of that I had to pick stances. And I liked picking the stances a little bit more, even though it's not as flexible. What I mean by that is that with a minstrel, you can essentially choose 3 stances: your main soloing DPS stance, your healing stance, so that's great for group raids, and then you're sort of like in between where you can do a little bit of damage and a little bit of healing. Soloing, I was main like the super heavy hitting DPS one, which I thoroughly enjoy, and I feel like it does more damage than my Runekeeper, but I'm kind of just going off of play styles and feelings. But I just want to mention that minstrels are really cool because not only do you get to choose your instruments that you get to kill mobs with, you also get so many long range skills. And there's shouts. I always love a good old shout. I don't know why. Like captains, I love their shouting abilities. I love the freaking just roar, especially with my minstrel. It was a small hobbit who would just yell like the craziest things. It was insane. And it is kind of unique. Maybe that's why I like it. It's a little weird. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen any other classes in any other game sort of similar to the minstrel, but I like it. It's a little neat, weird class. Another class I want to mention is champions, which kind of goes against everything that I mentioned previously. I don't like melee, like I mentioned. Champions, all about the melee. The nice thing about champions though is I really enjoy their AoE abilities, which no other classes in Lord of the Rings Online really have. So what I mean by that is that with a champion, you can do area of effect skills, which essentially means that you can grab like a crap ton of mobs and you will essentially have skills that can hit all of them with like one slash of your sword. Not only do they have the AoE skills, but they also have heavy armor, which is perfect because that means that you're actually going to sustain a longer time in comparison to a minstrel when it comes to battle, which I do like now and again. And I will say champions just seem more enjoyable because their animations are really cool. Like with the AoE skills that they have, I just really like the way that they've crafted some of the animations with some of the sword swipes and such. Really nice abilities overall that I like to kind of see for myself. It's really cool. I don't know, I just really like the animations a lot. As you do have your AoE skills and you do have the heavy armor aspect to you, you actually make a decent secondary tank for raids. So if you do want to do a little bit more raiding, a champion might be your best bet overall, because not only do you have really good abilities that makes you really durable in solo combat, you also make a good addition in raids as well. I think it's just a class that I feel very powerful in. Now there are other classes that definitely do have a better strength aspect to them now. I think champions are always going to have this powerful aura around them though, that just makes them almost untouchable because of their AoE abilities, and I think that's why it is a super enjoyable class. Now let's talk about burglars. Burglars are actually a class I find so fun to play. I feel like it's almost a more strategic class lately because you do have your stealth abilities, so you can attack enemies from behind. You do have a good durability to you because you have medium armor, so you're not that squishy, but you could be squishy enough that if you were to take on like a very high signature mob, you would probably not have the best outcome. What's really crazy about this class too is the fact that this was on my top 3 most disliked classes for several years. Like, I always disliked burglars because I felt like they were too squishy. I never understood the advantage of stealth. And not only that, I didn't really understand how their support skills really helped me in soloing whatsoever. And it's really because honestly, like, they're not totally meant for soloing. They're very important and vital in group content, but they are just now buffed enough that you actually have a decent survivability soloing on your burglar now. But it's almost nice because I feel like it is almost like the riskiest class to play because your chances are almost not that as certain as other classes. What I mean by that is when you are playing like your Bjornings, your Brawlers, your Champions, your Guardians, any heavy armored class, you're sitting there like, well, I can take on a good amount of hits before I even have to worry about my health going down, possibly popping a heal. With a light armor class, you almost have the exact opposite, where you understand that you can't do melee or anything like it, but your ranged abilities are typically super good with critical ratings and all of that, that you can probably annihilate an enemy before it even touches you. Now with Burglar, you are a stealthy close combat class. That means that you unfortunately don't have heavy armor, so you are a little weaker in that aspect in comparison to other classes, but you do have to use the stealth ability to your advantage. And then once you understand the debuff skills, which I didn't actually truly understand for the longest, how to kind of utilize that to my advantage, but once you kind of understand like your stuns and your debuffs, you could actually have a pretty good chance, but you have to be pretty strategic about what mobs you're going to attack when, who you're going to stun, more or less figure out what you're going to do before you actually step into the battle, which I feel like most people who go into any game that they're unaware of or unsure of, they just kind of want to go in and start fighting and then hope that they figure it out. So if you are a newer player, maybe Burglar isn't your best bet, but Burglars are so critical for group and raids, so I would say that if you do want to do group and raid content, that Burglars are going to be always essential no matter what, because they have really good like fellowship maneuver skills that are essential to your playing in groups and raids sometimes. Not only that, they have all the debuffs, so it's super important as well. Like I said though, I used to dislike burglars so much, and it's so crazy that now I'm at a point where I'm actually recommending you play burglars, which is just crazy. Anyway, that is all for the video today. If you would like to check out a class such as the champion, like I mentioned, I do have a guide that I will link right up here, and it is at the end of the video as well, so definitely check that out if you haven't already. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave it down in the comment section below. I'm always replying to all of your comments, so I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much, and as always, stay weird, weirdos.